Hey folks, so we did get a post from Meathead about the Y on Relic Delta, and as I suspected, and as I pushed, and as I told you guys on Discord, and of course only 24 hours after I put in that bot command for question mark Delta, we are getting the context now. As testers, we found out about this not too much earlier than you guys. I have had some time to digest it. I know a lot of people have already done videos on the subject, but I want to talk about this from my perspective. Now, there are things that I can and can't say because of the feedback loop of critiques that have gone on and what is and isn't privileged information. And I am not going to read the post in its entirety because it's an 11-minute read, but I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage people to read the post on their own and go through it, right? I could spend the next 11 minutes uh, reading it, and that would do nothing but pad the view time of this video and get me more ad views, and that is not what I am interested in doing. I am going to read my statement that I made as part of my feedback to this post, and we will talk about it a little bit right after the intro. So I did say we're not going to read the update in its entirety, but I am going to give you an overall summary for those of you that do not want to read. We are going to get a resource update. New characters will progress through gear and lower relics without consuming gear or relic mats. Freeze resources for older characters. Now, this is not a fully set in stone thing where we know all of the details about it yet, right? So keep that in mind. More is to come on that later. Droid brains and higher signal data will be added to the scavenger for alternate acquisition. Core concepts, we talk about vertical progression is the main design. Relics replaced gear tiers 6 years ago to fix scalability issues. The problem is that there's been no new relic levels in 4 years, no systematic reason to push higher relics. R9 is not as impactful, diminishing returns and lack of relevant content. Options that were considered but rejected instead of Relic Data were Relic Delta were doing nothing, which creates stagnation, changing existing Relic stats, which creates winners and losers, and it's not scalable. It doesn't solve the problem that Relic Delta intends to solve. Add R10 only, which repeats R9 issue, no long-term fix. Add bonus damage reduction by level, too steep, walls at thresholds, and unsustainable. The solution was Relic Delta. It's inspired by original level Delta systems, and we've talked about this before how characters at higher levels do more or less damage to characters at lower levels. It's a system that's been used in raids in this game before and is used before level 85, but we kind of outgrow it rather fast. It applies at all relic levels on a scalable curve. It only impacts damage, not all stats, so relic levels themselves still matter. The benefits are it speeds up older content, protects newer content and investments, it creates clearer PvP distinctions, it rewards relic investment across the board, still preserves strategy, just shifts it towards smarter relic investment, more free to play friendly than other games system, gradual scaling, single progression path. Alternative versions rejected is that it only kicks in at higher relics, which makes it inconsistent and confusing. Only increases damage, not decreases. It fails to protect the higher relics, right? And what they mean by that is that the Relic 9 character can still be targeted and hit and attacked and taken out very fast, and it creates glass cannons. Use team average lowest relic, punishes synergy, and is exploitable. And then there's some future plans. We're going to see Relic 10 added with a new signal data, which will not be energy farmed. It will be via the scavenger and new game modes that have not been addressed yet. New game mode, new event, and journey guide updates to let players use new characters quickly. Devs will monitor Relic Delta's PvP impact and adjust if needed. The bottom line is Relic Delta is a scalable system that keeps progression meaningful, protects investment, and refreshes the core loop of Swugga. Um, I just want to say that I'm not against the idea of Relic Delta. I understand the need for a scalable progression system. So when we talk about Relic Delta in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with it. And I know that some of you will call me a CG shill for that, but I really want you to stress and understand that I am talking about it in a vacuum just as a system itself. Currently, we are in version 2 of Relic Delta. The beta is still working through version 2 because there were some hiccups this weekend with versions and people figuring things out, which has invalidated some of the data. Otherwise, I think I would have expected a version 3 today. But as of right now, the swings still move from negative 66% to a positive 200% at a maximum relic delta of 5. And I will say that in my testing of these systems, I have found, and through watching the testing of other creators, have found that teams that have gimmicks, right? So they use like Annihilate, or they have heavy TM loops, or like they use Plague, which is unaffected damage wise. Things, teams that have those types of systems seem to still work at pretty high relic delta levels. As an example, my Treya team, which is right now set to relic 4, was beating a relic 9 Jar Jar team about 33% of the time. And some of those losses were timeouts, not deaths. They were not clean wins. Um, but teams that do not have those gimmicks attached to them, after about 2 delta levels, they become a lot more obscure in terms of who is going to win and who is going to lose. And it's going to obviously favor the people who have invested more in a team. I do want to read the statement after reading this post originally that I had made for CG. I have read the document several times, and I need to stipulate that I do understand it. And I do understand the long term ramifications of an old system versus a new, more scalable system. Personally, I think that everybody looking at it is looking at it through the lens of the player least likely to quit the game or to curb their spending if you are a spender. Because as a majority, we make up the tippy top of the player spear and have two things going for us. Our group is most likely to benefit from the good things. Our group is least likely to feel the negative implications. Truthfully, I think if this document came out a week ago, it would have made people mad, but would have made them just as mad as they are right now. Now, after a week of conspiracy theories and suggestions, I do think that this is just going to add fuel to the fire. With that said, I think it's necessary because they're going to find out at some point anyway, and it might as well be now. As I read the document, I felt some things were tone deaf. As an example, the lack of investment in Relic 9. A big reason why people didn't view Relic 9 as a worthwhile investment until recently is partially due to how small the upgrade was, but also a huge part of it was just how expensive the material cost Relic 8 to Relic 9 has been. Roughly $150 for one Relic level at release, which has been alleviated considerably in the last year. Additionally, just how small the droid brain flow had been within the community. In talking about this and seeing our present tests with Relic Delta and just how much RD1 and 2 do not crazily affect the player in a negative way, it seems reasonable to talk about how we can get community wins by lowering some of these numbers to not be such knee-jerk big deal issues. Currently at game, an R5 to R9 counter can be greatly affected by mod depth and datacron, and I see Relic Delta in terms of a game perspective as being an additional layer on top. Right now, the Relic Delta goes to 5 and sees a swing of negative 66 to 200%, which is a swing that only the strongest of Datacrons gives. And while it might not make a difference in regards to talking about top level mods or gimmick teams, teams with TM mechanics or use non traditional damage, it will make a difference for the majority of players when they hit an RD1 match where their opponent outclasses them, as it should. I want to reiterate that Relic Delta feels oppressive and punishing to players, and even if there are a few benefits, and if we change the current charts to something more along the lines of maximum damage reduction of 50% and maximum damage increase of 100%, while walking out the curve on the numbers to the RD5, you may see a much better community reaction because at least it will look like CG is listening, even if it doesn't make the great deal of difference on the back end. Additionally, when talking about the benefits of Relic Delta, many of those benefits do not really get shown in the areas of the game where they're most needed. While yes, I will certainly see a time reduction in territory battles, moving on from old content being a cited thing right in the beginning of the document, which might not be true right now just because the document was shifted slightly from when I wrote this. With day 4 being 5 planet day and only seeing a Relic Delta shift of +1 in many cases, that time reduction is going to be minimal at best on the days where it's needed the most. Finally, while we all knew Relic 10 was coming, I think added Relic 10 on top of Relic Delta before Relic Delta is even fully worked out is just going to throw people in a frenzy, given that it is not only cited in the document, but also one of the proposed solutions. Regardless of if it means something else, players will not take it well. Relic Delta is here to stay, but there needs to be some concessions made, some of which I really think should be included. Now, I'm going to pause there because there is um, more to my solution at the very bottom that I talked about, and I am going to talk about that later. But essentially, I want to reiterate that I do think that Relic Delta as a scalable system is not overall the problem. I think fundamentally the shock of how effective Relic Delta is going to be is a fundamental problem. And I do think that currently the obfuscation of how much it's actually going to benefit players in things like TB and how much it's going to benefit them is shaded by the fact that the time aspect at the top end is not going to see a huge benefit with the lower plus tiers, especially when we are seeing a new game mode. And I understand that this new game mode may replace an old game mode, but we do not have that information yet. So right now, I look at my biggest days in TB and I see and I think and I say, hey, wait a second, I might save 10 minutes. But you are now selling me a new game mode that may take another 30 minutes, and I already spend way too much time in game. I do believe that players right now are already hurting for things like signal data and relic materials. And by adding a new relic level on top of a relic delta system that people need to contend with is a little bit tone deaf. And if it's in this document, I personally expect something like Relic 10 to be added by the end of the year. And I do not think it will get the same. I do think it will get the same level of reaction as Relic 9 did originally in terms of how much investment people put into it, unless we are forced to invest in it. When Relic 9 was first put into the game, there was no reason to get it, but that's changed in the last year. We've seen prices come down. We've seen it needed in Rise of the Empire. We've seen it needed in era battles. We've seen it needed in new GLs. I personally went from having maybe 5 of them a year and a half ago to now having like 35 of them just out of need. Again, I don't think any of these systems are definitely incorrect. But I do think, as it stands, the version that we are currently seeing is not there yet. Now, the solution that I have given CG, and I do not believe that this is, I don't want to say final solution, but I do not believe that this is the final attempt that should be happening. But I do think that this is a better starting point from where we are now. Relic Delta is here to stay, but there needs to be some concessions made, some of which I really think should be included. PvP Relic Delta goes from -50 to 100% at a max RD of 5. PvE Relic Delta is doubled, so that when we look at a Relic 8 to Relic 9 planet differential, we will see a greater time saving for those players. Relic Delta would be turned off in Conquest, not until the Stranger is over, but until the feat problem is addressed and solved. And the feat problem is that which, if Relic 5 is the highest level, many of us who have much higher Relic teams are going to have problems dealing with feats that require debuffs. And we have been told that CG will look into this, but I think we need a long-standing agreement that until that is solved, we keep things as they are. Commit to a timeline of Relic Delta where RD plus 1 turns on in a month, RD plus 2 turns on in 3 months, and down the line, so that players have a little bit of time to adjust to Relic Delta, and so that players have a little bit of time to adjust their Relic materials and Relic acquisitions, such that they are able to put in the time, effort, and energy and materials into building out their rosters in the way that they feel will fundamentally help them. Commit to telling us how this is going to affect assault battles, because right now, it appears like this will have a hugely negative impact on early game assault battle play, and that is an important part of the early part of the game for Zeta acquisition and Finalizer acquisition, though I understand that gear levels and gear shifts may also be happening in this time period. Reading this document, there are definitely things where I see a positive future for this game. But as I mentioned to them, when I first read Relic Delta, I was at about a 4 out of 10, so 40% on this update. I'm sorry, no. I was at about a 2 out of 10 on this update. I was optimistic, I was hoping, but I was about a 2 out of 10 on it being released at that time. When we saw version 2, I was about a 6 out of 10, and I was really feeling optimistic about the prospects of working with CG to make the system right. After seeing this document, I do understand why they're doing it, but currently I am at about a 4 out of 10, and I do feel a little bit disheartened because I really did feel as though the context that we were missing was something, I don't want to say something deeper, but something where the game could not exist without it. And while I do understand why CG feels that the game cannot exist without Relic Delta, I do feel that if the issue is not a monetization issue, and if the issue is a game health issue, they can give players a better amount of time to learn about Relic Delta and to modify their accounts to prepare for Relic Delta. All of this is also to say that one large negative mark that I have given CG for a very long time is that currently their in-game messaging system sucks. The great majority of players probably do not even know that Relic Delta is coming to the game. They are not aware of Relic Delta, and whenever this update releases, they are going to see a swift kick in the ass when things stop working for them. They are going to get an update note in the game from the weird little messaging system on day one. And if they even decide to go to the website, because generally there is no link that players can click to immediately open it, they're going to get a swift slap across the face when they have to deal with these things. And I do think that that's a problem. And I've played a lot of mobile games, and I know a lot of mobile games with much, much lower budgets have a much more robust system of messaging for the developers to deal with the players that are least likely to contend with and talk about the game or watch videos on the game. And I think that that is largely problematic. I am hoping that we see a version 3 in the next couple of days. And I really am truly hoping that version 3 reinvigorates my desire to be part of this test. I'm really hoping that the right things are done to make me feel better about this test. I really hope that this test isn't just about hitting certain win percentages and metrics, and that it really is about making the best game possible and making the most amount of money. Of course, I understand that CG is a business. I understand that it is part of a large corporation. I get those things. I'm not dumb to those things. I want them to succeed. But I really hope that what they are looking for is to really develop a solid game and that this isn't just corporate speak to appease players that don't really understand what is going on. Now, I will say that right now, I do not expect to quit the game. I don't think that players should quit the game. I do think players should play the game with Relic Delta when it comes out, and they should give it a chance, and they should make up their own minds about Relic Delta. But right now, I am feeling overall less confident. And right now, I am not as feeling as optimistic as I felt this morning or yesterday. And I have had some really great conversations on the topic of Relic Delta. And some of those conversations are privileged and some of them are not. Um, and I really do hope that CG does the right thing and they think about this from the perspective of all the players and not just the perspective of the people least likely to be effective. And I will once again say that one thing that really does frustrate me is that the things that are most likely to positively benefit me, the things like territory battles and time being sped up and being able to move through those things quickly. Relic 10 to me feels like this system will only allow me to do those things if I pay for it to allow me to do those things. With all of that said, I will keep you guys updated. I really do hope version 3 changes my mind. And I really do hope that people see my first couple of videos and see this one and they understand that I am not interested in pushing an agenda. I am not interested in appeasing anybody. I am interested in the truth, and I am interested in telling the truth, and I am interested in giving the information. And while I do not think truthfully that I would be removed from the beta program, I would rather tell the truth and share the information and my feelings on it that I'm allowed to share because I did make an agreement. Whether it paints me one way or the other way. And I will finish by saying that after reading this post, I did take an hour and a half to really sit down and think about my role in the beta program as it is and whether it's worth continuing and whether I am making the difference for the game within the context of video games that I hope that I am making. And I don't know what my decision is right now, but at the moment, I do feel like sticking it out is the way to go, because otherwise I am an ostrich putting my head in the sand, and that is not generally how I act. So, with that said, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know on Discord. Shoot me private messages because everybody else has. I probably won't respond to them, but I do read all of them. It's too many. It's very hard to respond to all of them. I'm trying, guys. I am. But let me know. Have a great rest of your night.